Hello and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversations like mental health, self-care, self-love, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we all support one another to get to the next level in personal life or in business life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On this episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Hollie. She has the privilege of working with some amazing patients over the year by combining her research with their trial and error efforts. They came up with some tips, strategies to slowly work their way back to their pre-burnout selves. These hacks made all the difference when it becomes her turn to recover from her own burnout, and what opened her eyes to the fact that there is no one size fits all approach to burnout recovery. I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to start this conversation. So welcome, Hollie, to my show. Tell
Oh,
us.
thanks for inviting me. It was great to get your invitation. Thank you.
So tell us, what is life with Hollie?
Oh, Life with Holly. Um, Depending on the day, it can be a little crazy. Sometimes I am working a 12-hour shift at my local hospital as a clinical pharmacist. And then when I'm not doing that, I am doing courses or one-on-one care to help people recover from burnout. I call myself a burnout recovery guide because it's a journey.
I absolutely love that. And yep, it is a journey.
So um, I was hoping for some questions, but we'll just fly through this.
How did your mission started? It was in the middle of a breakdown. I mean, burnout.
um, I did have my own burnout, and that's what started me guiding other people on their journey to burnout. Back in, I believe it was 2014 or possibly the end of 2013, so way prior to COVID. I had graduated from pharmacy school and I was working in an environment that was terribly toxic. I mean, it was bad. And I can give you the whole story if you want it.
Yeah, go ahead. I want it. I
Okay.
want to know everything.
All right. So I got enough work about midnight and I got on the freeway and I'm driving home. And all of a sudden, all of these thoughts about my day, what was said, what should have been said, what was done, what should have been done, all of the stressful things that happen when you're kind of working through that kind of toxic stress are going through my head. And so I'm driving and driving and not paying at all attention to where I'm going, which is terrible, right? Because I was on the freeway. And at one point, there was kind of this mental lull in my conversation with myself. And I'm looking at the clock on the dash and I realize I've been driving for 2 hours without paying attention to where I'm going. And I'm
Oh my
completely
gosh.
lost. I mean, just lost as can be. And as an interesting aside, I am very addicted to murder mysteries
Oh
and
my
cop
gosh, me
shows.
too.
And so here I am, woman driving alone, 2 a.m, lost as can be, and my brain is going all kinds of places, right?
Danger zone.
Exactly. I'm thinking, oh no. So I go to get my phone to tell me where I'm at, and of course it's dead. So almost in panic mode at this point, and then I see this freeway exit with a Walmart sign, and I'm thinking, oh hurrah, because I can just get a charger and charge my phone and I'll get home. So I pull off the freeway, I get into the Walmart parking lot. They're not open 24 hours, so I've got a few hours to wait. So I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. And slowly it dawns on me that I am alone. I mean, just alone. There's no cars moving. There's no people in the parking lot. There's nothing. And the more I realize I'm alone, the more I start feeling really just isolated. And that aloneness after all that stress was just crushing. And I remember putting my head down on the steering wheel and just sobbing. And it's never a pretty sight when I cry. I am an ugly crier.
Me too,
I'm
girl.
not that pretty crier at all. It's everything gets blotchy. It gets really frightening. So I'm just crying and crying and crying on the steering wheel. And I hear this knock, knock, knock on my car window. And I'm just like, because, murder mysteries, right? So I'm having this mini heart attack. And I look out the window and there's this little gal who looks exactly like Betty White in a Walmart vest. And she's going, honey, are you okay? And the woman did not flinch. And I got to give her props for that because ugly crying is scary to look at. And she just says, are you okay? And at this point, I have no dignity left, no pride. I'm just
I'm
sobbing.
sorry, it's not
And
funny, but I understand. I've been there.
right? I think we all have at some point. And I just look at this woman and I don't even try. I'm just like, no, no, I'm not okay. I'm not even a little okay. And she stops and she looks at me, and really looks at me the way some people, they see you. And she gave this little nod. And then, with all the certainty in the world in her voice, she says, but you will be. And there was something about that certainty that just, I found myself nodding back and saying, you know what? Yeah, I will be okay. And for me, this is an eye-opening experience, right? This little old lady, she goes wandering off to her car like this is no big deal. And I'm like, the clouds parted and the sun shone down. And it's just, wow, look at this. This is an eye-opening experience for me. And so I start thinking about, how am I going to be okay? I knew I would be, but I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get there. And of course, 2013, 2014, there weren't the volume of life coaches and burnout recovery coaches and that type of thing that there are now. So I was pretty much on my own. And I started looking at, different recovery programs. I looked at weight loss recovery programs and addiction recovery programs. And at some point, I stumbled across a quote that you cannot recover until you know what you're recovering from.
Oh
And
my
that really struck
gosh.
me. That's profound stuff when you really think about it. And so I started looking at, what am I recovering from? What are the pieces that are the actual problem? Just saying it's my job is too broad. So what are the specifics? I'm being micromanaged. Okay, I need to recover from that. I'm being underpaid. Okay, I definitely need to recover from that. And so you start looking at the specifics. And once you nail those down, well, you've got to plan forward at that point. Because if you know that you're underpaid, well, hey, I've got a plan. I need to be more paid. So when you start looking at it and you start looking at the science that is now out there, Christina Maslach and her team, they're the foremost experts at this point in burnout science, workplace burnout specifically, or occupational burnout. They've narrowed it down to 6 general areas in all work life, whether it's control, workload, reward, community, fairness, or values. Those 6 areas of work life are pretty much where everybody's burnout is going to have a problem. If you've got a friction in one of those areas, that friction's eventually going to turn into flame.
About all of them. I'm like, I'm trying to pick one that I don't have, but all of them.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't have a really great place to start when they're looking at, well, how do I find what it is I'm recovering from? So they came up with their assessments. I pulled it in and tweaked it for my people so that it's within the realm of what I work with. So that you can actually drill down to the specifics, get away from all the noise and what isn't working, into the specifics of, okay, in workload, I am overloaded at work because I have too many tasks and not enough time. So for me, that says I need time management. Maybe in workload, you've got a situation where you're a people pleaser and you got too many tasks because you say, sure, I'll take that on for you. And so then in that instance, your friction area would be, or your plan moving forward would be that I need to learn how to say no, how to set boundaries. So maybe in reward, you're underpaid. Maybe you're just underappreciated and you would like somebody to say thank you every once in a while.
Oh
Or
my
maybe
God,
you're
that's
bored out of
me.
your mind.
Give me gold stars all the time. I live for gold stars.
Exactly. It makes a difference. It does. So when you look at these areas where you've got breakdowns, where you've got mismatches between what you need and what you're getting, then you make a map that becomes your roadmap and you slowly work those areas. So maybe you've got a huge mismatch that you can bring into something a little less stressful. So say you're super underpaid, maybe we can get you closer, but we may not get you in the top tier. Okay, that's okay to start. At least it takes some of that stress down. It may not take it away completely, but it reduces it so it becomes more manageable. And that's how I work with my people. The first thing we do is we sit down and we do the roadmap. And then we pick a goal and we work the goal. And slowly we get it closer and closer and closer. Or we find that we can't get it closer and closer and you need to move on. And in that instance, you start building up your reserves, your stress reserves, and find another job that isn't going to put you right back in that same situation. One of the nice things I've found is that with the great resignation that's going on right now, people leaving their jobs, people finding other opportunities for themselves, we are in a position where we are pretty much interviewing our next employer rather than our employer interviewing us. And
Yeah,
at that point, that puts us in a lot of control. So if we know that we have a problem being underappreciated, part of what we say when we walk into an interview is, what do you do to show appreciation for your employees? And if they don't have an answer, that's probably not the job for you.
that's what I say for the post office. People are coming in through one door and leaving through the other one. We're like, close the door, lock them in, don't let them leave. But I say, like Gen Z generation, I'm a millennial. And I'm saying Gen Z generation is not going to put up with the underpay, working super mega hours and getting no appreciation, no value, no nothing. You're nothing but a number. So a lot of people, especially a lot of companies with physical jobs, are struggling right now to hire people. And for me, I tell my coworkers all the time, I'm leaving. I don't know when I'm leaving, but I'm leaving. Because I guess I'm part millennial and part Gen Z because I want my feelings to be acknowledged. I want to be appreciated. If I did a good job, tell me I did a good job.
Well, and as a millennial, that's an entire generation. I think the statistics are over 80% of millennials are experiencing burnout at work. And that's not a surprise. As a generation, your cultural messaging has been that you don't just get a job, you get a job that you're passionate about. And who gets their dream job? Not everybody does. And so most of you are overqualified and completely underwhelmed by the job that you're doing. And those two things by themselves can really drive burnout. And then on the flip side, you get the ones that did get their dream job and they're throwing so much of themselves into their job because, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. That's what cultural messaging says. You're supposed to be passionate and give everything you've got to this dream job. Well, guess what? You gave it all to the dream job. What's left for you? So they're burned out too, just in a different way. So we pretty much set the millennials up for burnouts, and then Gen Z comes in behind, sees everything going on with the millennials and says, we're not doing that. We're not stupid.
Yep. It's just like that. But I do hope that they learn from the mistakes that we did.
There is quite a bit that is being learned. There's this phenomenon called quiet quitting. I'm sure you've heard of it, where they say, well, if this is my job expectation, you handed me a list when I started this job that said, these are my expectations. They're like, I am meeting expectations, period. And the employers come back and say, well, you're supposed to exceed expectations. And they say, why? That's not on my list. My
Oh
list
my
says I'm
God,
supposed to do X, and I'm doing X. No
that's
more, no less.
me. You get me at work. You want to for me to be at my job. That's as far as it goes.
Yeah. And that's going on across the country. People are saying, no, if you've set my expectations, I will meet your expectations, but don't ask more from me than that, because it's kind of like they snuck up on you. They're like, okay, this is what we're telling you we want, but we really want this other thing. And if you're not going to read our minds and give us this other thing, you're in trouble. And that's crap.
Oh yeah, for the post office, they promote no overtime. I'm like, when? Like we do overtime even in our sleep.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard, and I understand. I can relate a lot with burnout. When you have a hard physical, emotionally, uh, mentally job, and then you have problems at home also. And then I can't even imagine, like today, my friend got a couple phone calls from school. So parents too with hard jobs. Holy moly. I raised my, my heart to them because like that's it's so crazy not to be
It
burned out.
is. It is. So, I mean, part of it, if you're not burned out yet, you start building up your reserves. You do all of those reserve building, resilience building things like taking care of yourself health wise. Get your sleep, eat healthy. Um, Naturally, that one's my struggle point,
I
but
know. Mine too.
everybody's
I'm
got one.
trying.
I know, right? Um, Even like journaling or meditating or practicing gratitude. Actually, here's an interesting thing. Gratitude is one of the few things that you can use ahead of time to build up your resistance to burnout. But then when you're in the middle of burnout, it will actually help you heal as well. So
Oh
that
wow.
practicing gratitude is so powerful. And there's actually science behind it.
Yeah, I hear all this self-development world. It's all about gratitude. I do have a lot of journals, so when you talk about journals, that's my world. And I have gratitude journal, prayer journal, because it's just the power of getting whatever is in your head and putting it on a paper. Sometimes you get something out of it, and other times you're like, why am I even thinking those thoughts? That's why I'm feeling how I'm feeling, because of those thoughts.
Exactly. You get them out of your head, make them a little bit distant from you so that you can really think them through and decide, is this something I want to carry around? Or do I even believe this anymore? Yeah, maybe I believed it as a kid, but do I believe it now? Is this working for me? Journaling is powerful. It is. And, when you look at mental health and the evolution of it, I find it super interesting. I mean, 1800s, 1500s, 1600s, they thought, okay, you're possessed by a demon. And then that switch in Victorian times, they changed from you're possessed by a demon to you're broken. And they wanted to figure out how to fix you. And recently, I mean, 20th century stuff, they've stopped looking at what's wrong and they've started to looking what's right. And now we actually can scientifically measure happiness. And once you can measure it, you can create it, right? So they're measuring and making happiness. They're measuring and making gratitude. We're looking at what's right and how to make the good stuff, not just how to undo the bad stuff. And it's this whole other world of mental health than it was my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, because we've shifted the thought process. We've shifted what we're looking at.
Yep. And when it comes to mental health, that's me. That's all I talk about all day long. And I was actually raised where they call it demons. So it's not too far. That was just 25 years ago where my
Right.
family started saying that I had demons. And then that's great for a child. Doesn't cause trauma at all. And
Right.
then if you can tell my sarcasm, and then broken, I have heard a lot that in my 20s, and it's not into my 30s. Like today I just had my first therapy session, but I have been on and off for the past decade. But now this time I'm like, teach me about my brain,
Yeah.
because I have been in the self development world for a decade and I feel stuck. I don't
Oh,
understand. And then so when I went and I was like, yeah, I'm just here for research. He was like, well, that's the first and I love it. And I was like, yeah, I know something is not clicking. So living that appointment, I felt a little bit better. But doing the mental health evaluation and answering all those questions, because when you're in life, you're going through it, right? So you
oh
woke
yeah. You
up
just
and you're upset because you have to go to work. I don't know about you, but that's me. That's my life. So I'm not a morning person. So I'm like struggling. Then you get to work and it's a whole mess. So now you have more reasons to be upset. Then you get home and it's time for bed. So you didn't have time for yourself to reset or anything. Well, that's just normal. It's average, is what you do. When you have a mental health evaluation and you're answering questions for 4 hours about every little thing in your life,
yeah.
you get a different perspective.
Oh yeah. It's eye opening.
It's like, no wonder I'm upset all the time. No wonder I'm sad all the time. If I can't see my rainbow, then
Yeah.
how am I going to act like I am in the rainbow?
Yeah. I think that it would just be once a year if everybody just did one, just a mental health check in. Where am I going? I think that that would be so good for everyone.
I am all down. I was scared before the mental health evaluation, but
Mm-hmm.
now afterwards, I felt such a compassion for myself, such grace and love. Because if my bestie, my work wife, my face sister, they came to me with all of that nonsense, I will be like, girl, let's go get our nails done. We
Exactly.
got this. But for me, I'm like, oh, you need to have it together. You're 34 years old. You should be ahead of this and blah, 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 blah. Why? Who says that?
Right. The things we tell ourselves and the way we treat ourselves. I mean, you'd never say that to your best friend, let alone a kid, and that kid is still inside you. We need to find self-compassion, self-love. You're right.
Yeah, well, my self-love journey is about a year. So
Uh-huh.
I'm getting it down. I'm trying. Work in progress.
I think it's a lifetime journey. I think that there will always be times when you doubt yourself. There will always be times when even at your most successful, then you're looking at imposter syndrome. Did I earn this? Am I worthy of it? Am I just faking it? All of those feelings pop in. And the funny thing is when you talk to people who you think have it completely together, they'll tell you the same thing. Oh yeah, I fight with imposter syndrome all the time. And I'm going, honey, how is that even possible for you? On the outside, you look so together. Um, the musician Seal has this saying, and I find it so amazing. He says, everybody's broken, and it's those cracks that let the light shine through.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I feel that. Oh, I love it. So yeah, do you offer a coaching program on a one-on-one? Do you have a mastermind? What do you offer for your clients?
Well, it pretty much is what they need to do. I try to meet people where they are. So I do have quite a bit that I do one-on-one. I also do small groups. At the first of the year, we've got courses and a master class coming up. So first of the year, we've got all kinds of things online for self-study that are coming up. And that's after my book launches in November. So
Oh, I
tons of
love it.
things coming up.
Yeah, tell me more about the book.
Okay. It's called Escape the Quicksand of Workplace Burnout, a 5-step stress survival guide. And basically, it walks you through the process of developing your roadmap, figuring out exactly where those friction spots are so that you have your roadmap, looking at the specific goals that you can set to kind of make things together or bring your work life into match with your ideal. And then from there, it's just working your goals and how to assess. Um, Hopefully, by the end of this month, the assessment that I use for my patients will be available on my website for free for people so they don't have to spend 30, 40 bucks a pop to use some of the other assessments that are available online. Because honestly, it should be available for anyone who needs it. Your budget should not get in the way of your mental health
Yeah,
ever.
I know.
So they're working that out. The reporting's a little twisted right now, but it should be fixed by the end of the month. At the moment, we do have a quiz online
Oh, I gotta.
that
Sorry.
they,
By then it probably all be live because this will be at the end of October.
oh, perfect. Yeah, it'll
Yeah, yeah.
probably all
Sorry,
be
I
live.
didn't say that at the beginning. Yeah, we're in September, but I have interviews all the way almost to the end of October.
Okay,
Anyways,
so
yeah, go ahead.
hopefully your listeners will be able to access that right away.
Yeah.
If for some reason they can't, or even if they're just interested, we do have a quiz online. Which of your personality traits is leaving you vulnerable to burnout so that you can
Yeah.
get in there and really see where your vulnerability spots are. After you take it, you get like a 9 or 10 page report that the computer calculates for you specifically based on your answers, that tell you, okay, this is the personality trait. These are the upsides because they all have really awesome upsides. But these are the areas that you may want to put a little extra support into because they're potential pitfalls for you. And then I really wanted to make sure that people at least had the first couple steps to get them started in recovering from burnout if they needed to. So those are on there as well.
I love it. And I'm taking that quiz.
Oh, you
Oh, that
should.
sounds so good. I love learning about myself. So if you already have a system, like I love that because it just gives me a different perspective and on myself.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I say adulthood is all about recovering from your childhood.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And so the more we find out as adults who we are, what we're made up of, because it's pretty rare. It's a pretty rare parent that's able to give you that information to guide you towards that information. So a lot of your adulthood is self-discovery. So the more we make that information available and available at whatever budget so that people actually can access it, they can print it out, they got it in their hands, whatever they need to have the tools to move forward. I think it's incumbent on any of us that are capable of providing that information that we do so.
I absolutely love it. And I will have all the information in the show notes. Is there anything else that you would like to plug in?
I can't think of a thing.
Oh, that's awesome. I really had a great time with you, though.
I did too. Thanks for inviting me, Francie. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, we found each other through Podmatch. So if you would like to be a guest on Life with Francie podcast, check out my Podmatch profile because that is the fastest way to get a hold of me. So thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure. I can't wait to take this quiz and, keep in contact with you.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Hope you have a blessed day.